I'm trying to. No, yeah.
Welcome to this, our final meeting of our Weber County Commission meeting held on this 31st day of December 2024. We've got a full quorum with Commissioner Sharon Bolos seated to my right, Commissioner Gage Frohr seated to my left. We welcome those of you who are in the chamber today, and those of you who are online. We'll remind you, if you're online, to please mute yourself unless you're called upon. Our agenda this morning will proceed as follows. Our Pledge of Allegiance this morning will be led by our County Assessor, Mr. John Ulibarri. The invocation will be given by Mr. Craig Brandt. And then our thought of the day will be given by Commissioner Bolos, but she may yield, and so we'll go to that point. Mr. Ulibarri.
Please rise and recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we thank Thee for this wonderful day. We're grateful for the sunshine. We pray, Father, that we can receive the snow that we need for our requirements for water in the future. We thank Thee for the year that is behind us and for the year that is coming, and ask Thy blessing as we conduct this meeting, that we will do so in accordance with Thy will, that the matters that are discussed will have wisdom behind their decisions, and that the citizens of this county that we love will know that we are doing our best to serve them. We pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Commissioner Harvey, you are right. I would like to yield.
Please.
Considering that I've never seen Mr. Ulibarri wear jeans, it must be a special day. So I would like to invite him to give our thought of the day.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolos. I believe it is known as Casual Tuesday on the calendar. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to express my thanks to everybody that has helped along the way, essentially allowed me to do all the things that I've been able to do. As you know, no one achieves success alone. I first took office in 2011. As the new assessor, I thought, or mostly hoped, that I knew what I was doing. 2 years before my election, my first election, I was tasked with running the office as the chief deputy, and in doing so, I felt confident about officially taking over. I quickly discovered the stark difference between running the office and sitting in the big chair. I liken it to coming home with the power out and finding my wife had rearranged all the furniture. I stubbed my toes a lot, and I felt like cussing a lot. But other assessors and the good people at the Tax Commission helped navigate these situations as they arose. The Weber County team was more important to our success. The relationships built between the attorneys, the commission, the clerk auditor, human resources, IT, operations, the recorder surveyor, and the treasurer's offices cannot be overstated. In some counties, these people can't even sit in the same room together. In Weber County, we can have frank and even uncomfortable conversations and still walk away feeling good about each other and be friends. The assessor's office team was the most significant day-to-day contributor to our success. Paraphrasing my good friend John Bond, I stood on the shoulders of giants. Without the fantastic people we have, I would have never had the time to accomplish the things that I did. The goal of a good administrator is to make yourself obsolete. As things sit now, we've achieved that goal. I could literally leave the office for a month and things would still continue to operate smoothly. Probably smoother than they do when I am there. I've worked with wonderful people over my career, but have never had the pleasure of associating myself with such a magnificent group. Most importantly, my family. My girls were both in high school when we talked about running for elected office. Their first thought was, how embarrassing, Dad. Their next thought was, Dad, are people going to be mean to you? Fortunately, the answer is no, mostly. Then I literally have a little smiley face emoji on my paper there. I can actually recount on one hand throughout my almost 25-year career in the assessment industry the actual bad interactions I've had. I've had thousands of interactions with people across 2 different counties, and for the most part, they've been really, really good. Then there's my wife, Randy. She stood by my side through thick and thin. She patiently listened to my stories, frustrations, worries, and triumphs. She stood by my side at various events like county conventions. I said multiple times that she's the only reason people would vote for me. She charmed and encouraged people. We would meet at conventions and meet the candidate nights. I've literally heard multiple people say, I'm not sure about your husband, but I like you, so I'll vote for him. In the end, I want to thank everyone for their professionalism, patience, and kindness. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for allowing me to take the time. And
Thank
I
you.
think that deserves a round of applause. You know, John, we're fortunate. I'll speak for myself. I'm fortunate to have known you. You're a man of great character and integrity. You've always had the right thing in mind, never self-serving, never once self-serving. You've been kind enough to share with others, both in the county. You've had a spirit of collaboration always. The reason we all get along together, which Macy, I'm going to go right to you. Of the 29 counties, this county is unique because all of the elected officials talk. We get along, and that doesn't happen with all the other counties. And that's how you get things. We're more efficient in this county. You've led a wonderful team. They've got a great morale up there. You've had great deputies, and John, you've also decided to take extra time away from your family to lead even state organizations such as UAC and others, your subgroup there for assessors, a time you didn't need to do as the president and chair and other things. You're very respected in the community. We love and appreciate you, who you are. John has decided to take a job with the Utah Association of Counties. And so he's submitted a letter of resignation effective Friday. So there'll be a process involved with that as well. For his, he'll be irreplaceable, but we'll do the best we can to try to fill your Alan Edmonds. So, So we appreciate you. Commissioner Bolos, thoughts or comments, or Commissioner, in as much as we're here, Commissioner Froer, I'll go to you, Commissioner Bolos first.
Yeah. First met John when I was the mayor in West Haven, and we were proposing our first ever property tax. Didn't know who he was, but I knew he was an important person to be there at our open houses, and we had 2 open houses, and he stood there and took the bullets for us. It was a year of substantial increases in property values, and we were trying to help the public understand what we were proposing versus what their property values had done, and I just watched him and his professionalism, and you said you've only had a handful of bad interactions, and I think people earn that. Elected officials earn that. You can have a lot of bad interactions if you're not professional, and so that just shows your character, and I just have all the respect in the world for you.
Thank you. Commissioner Froer?
Well, 2024 is going to go down in history. We lost 2 Johns and a Leanne. Longtime public servants, and I had a lot of interaction with Mr. Ulibarri and also Mr. Bond in my previous job down at the little White House at the Capitol, where I was involved with a lot of tax bills, property rights bills, and a lot of those impacted on what Mr. Ulibarri dealt with in his department. And it wasn't very infrequent that when a bill came up, either mine or one of the others that he struggled with that may impact the taxpayers, he didn't hesitate to give me a call, but always in good faith and with the taxpayer at mind. And at the end of the day, his input was very valuable, not only to me, but over 100 other legislators as they heard his voice down there on the impact it had on taxpayers in not only Weber County, but the other 28 counties in this state. So thanks for all you did, John.
You're trusted. Appreciate you. Thank you. One more round of applause for John. Terrific. Thank you. Well, that was a beautiful thought, Commissioner Bolos. I think we'll have you speak more often. We'll now move to item E, which is our public-related comments. For those, we will take comments at this time on items pertaining to the agenda. We're not quite ready, Jan, but thank you. Just stay right there. We ask that you state your name, the city or the area you're from, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Jan, come on forward. Thanks.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm very sorry my voice is not the best it is right now. There's something going around. My name is Jan Fulmer. I'm from 3741 Red Hawk Circle in Eden, Utah. And Commissioners, I'm going to ask that you consider not approving the final reading of the ordinance of the County Commission of Weber County adopting the project area plan for the Nordic Village Community Reinvestment Project Area. There was recently an article in the Standard Examiner which outlined what was in a new development plan for the Nordic Village. We immediately contacted Weber County Planning, who've been very good to work with over the years, because the original development agreement went back to 565 development units, but what was published in the Standard Examiner was 637 development units, plus a 230-room hotel, plus 56,000 square feet of commercial space. When we asked the Weber County Planning Area where did these additional development units come from, they said they had no idea where the Standard Examiner got their data. The Standard Examiner got their data from the development plan and budget that was published by another area of Weber County, the Economic Development Area. And it was extremely confusing. They could not help us. They weren't aware of this. So you kind of have a situation where within your organization, the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. The other thing is there's been no water approved. There's been no commitment for water for this development. And when we had a brief conversation with the economic, development director in Weber County, that individual indicated, oh, the water will be approved. Well, is there something that has happened that the public does not know about specifically the public up in Ogden Valley. There are 3 new wells that have been drilled, despite the recommendation from a very intensive study that was paid for by the Weber Basin Water Conservancy District that said drill no new wells until there's a thorough plan in place. And to the best of our knowledge, the state board has not ruled on those 3 wells. So please, we need to bring something forward to the public to understand for the sake of transparency. The other thing is, why not try to use some of this money for affordable housing in Weber County? You have affordable housing developments going on in western Weber County, and they're excellent plans. But we need affordable housing, and it would seem this money could be used much better for this public infrastructure district for some type of affordable housing development. Thank you.
Are there others that'd like to come forward?
I borrowed some readers, so.
Great.
Good morning. My name is Beth Keswick, and I live in Ogden Valley, specifically in the Nordic Valley area that will be impacted greatly by this interlocal agreement. The interlocal agreement is a very complex document, as I'm sure that you realize, having read it. Before the final approval, all the affected parties and the public deserve a simple, easy-to-follow summary of this interlocal agreements. Questions such as I will outline below need to be answered in a clear and concise manner. The interlocal agreement authorizes funding with property tax increment and/or sales tax proceeds. Is my understanding that the resort will provide its sales tax proceeds to the Community Reinvestment Agency of Weber County for 15 years correct? And on what date does this commence? I'd like that answered. And then it also refers to an offset of personal property costs related to serve the project area that would be offset without limitation. I'd like an explanation of why personal property costs should be offset. Will the Community Reinvestment Agency make available to the public the itemized list detailing the infrastructure and related improvements which it is required to provide to the county on an annual basis, and where will this be posted? I would like an answer to that. And why is the maximum payment of tax increment financing capped at $18 million when the budget states that $45.7 million will be paid for the community and regional infrastructure with partial funding from TIF and PID? The numbers don't match, and I'm not sure why. And I would like someone to trace the flow of money from the tax increment, then I presume it goes back to the agency, and then from there, does it go to the developers and beyond? And from the developers, does it go to service their bonds? Another question I have, is it factual to state that the taxes levied in the PIDs from Weber Basin and the fire district will be provided to the CRA and be available to the developers at a rate of 50%? In Section 6, Exhibit B, is it realistic to assume the Nordic Village will generate $283 million in new resident per capita spending over the next 25 years? That
Thank you.
translates into, I'll just finish this one thought. That translates into $11.3 million per capita per year. That's a lot of spending.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you. We've taken some notes.
All right, I'll provide a copy to the recorder.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online, Christy? Okay. Very good. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I'm here to ask about the language.
You give your name for the people online.
Thank you. My name is Peggy Doolingbaker, and I live in the Nordic Valley area, on Nordic Valley Drive. And when I saw the notice, I sent an email, but I did not get a response. So I'm here to ask about the language in today's notice. It clearly states that you are approving adopting the project area plan for the Nordic Valley Village Community Reinvestment Project Area. The only plan submitted with this application, as Jim mentioned, greatly increases our units from the 565 to over 800. The plan also does not show heights, functions of buildings, and I'm not sure how we comment on a plan that is so vague. It didn't have a legend. We weren't able to identify anything on the map. And that's what I'm assuming was the plan, the site plan. The budget that went along with that, the budget supports the plan, so we're not sure what that plan is, to be quite frank. And it seems to be evolving and changing. When the Ogden Valley Planning Commission reviewed it, it was presented as affordable housing, where our kids could buy homes and buy their first homes. And now the plan states that the vast majority will be secondary homes with no permanent residence. So now we're at 800 short-term rentals. Does this plan replace the approved plan in March of '23 is another question we have. If so, again, where did all the TDRs come from? And if those were transferred in, as the master plan does allow to transfer in TDRs, what's the recording? Because that should leave about 600 acres of land that cannot be built on. So what is the recording process for that? And was something developed? I'm not aware of. Again, I'm not aware of the water that's been approved. And our last concern is, for many of the people I talk to, is this plan does not follow the form-based village street zone regulating map that we assumed was in place. So when we look at it, it's now all commercial from boundary to boundary. The whole intent was to start the center with commercial and move out towards the neighborhood, not have commercial buildings next to single-family homes. And if you look at this, you know, even though the road changes, we've assumed the colors should stay the same. And we'd like to see how all that comes together. So I am asking that you don't pass this agreement until the street regulating map, the site plan, and the ordinance are all aligned, so we know what project this tax money is supporting. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. We're not accepting questions. I'm happy to take a statement if she'd like to make a statement online. Felice Quigley, go ahead.
Maurice typing said, I would like to know how this plan can be approved when there's no specific descriptions of any of the buildings in that plan. There's no height requirements or other information describing the type of structure.
Yes, I'm sorry, Commissioners. My name is Felice Quigley. I own a house in Nordic as well. I have to echo Ms. Fulmer's comments about the TDRs. I went back and reviewed the original development agreement that was approved, and it indicated that there was a total of 28 allotted to parcels. I believe it was 1 and 2. And then it was 537 development units allotted to parcels 5 through 15. Now, at least according to the content of the proposed plan, they are adding some additional 22 development units without any further explanation. And maybe I've missed that. Obviously, there was an opportunity to add additional units, but I don't know when that happened. In addition, I will join in on Ms. Baker's comments that the the diagram that was attached, the rendering that was attached to the plan has absolutely no specificity evidencing the height of the buildings, what type of buildings they are, how many stories are permitted. There's no specificity whatsoever. And based upon what I believe the action item is listed on the website, it says, request for approval of the final reading of the ordinance adopting the project area plan for the Nordic Village community. So my concern is that without specificity, how do we even know what the types of buildings are going to be constructed here, and what is the impact of passing this ordinance on the actual buildings that will be constructed? And that's I urge you not to vote in favor of this at this point, because I don't think there has been a transparency that would educate the community on what's really going on. So I'm asking you to please defer on passing this right now and give us, the community, an opportunity to review accurate information that actually tells what's going on, because I don't think we've received that as of this date. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, if there's no one else, we'll move on. We have one more.
Shanna Francis, Eden. Piggybacking what they're talking about, that we don't have the specifics going forward. And in that, in the contract H3, the offset of development costs and expenses, that it's stated that it's in the best interest of the constituents for the county to pay specified portions of its portion of tax increments to the agency in order for the agency to offset costs and expenses which will be incurred by the agency or participants in the project area development. And then you go on to include not only the infrastructure that's typically for water, sewer, roads, whatever, but there again, as had been mentioned, installation of buildings and personal property. And we have no idea of what those buildings and personal property are. And how can that, we pay for something if it's personal property that we wouldn't even have a means of recouping costs if the case down the road is needed, that we do need to come back for legal means to recoup costs. Also, I'm very, very concerned for the underinflated base taxable value that is listed. $12,549,097 is the base value of the resort and the area that's going to be developed. And I know, to me, I think we have an oversight from the county in that the core element of the development on the golf course has been taxed as greenbelt for years. And I don't know why that is so, and I don't know why that hasn't been changed, but that's probably where that underinflation is coming from. But that is critical into the amount of taxes or monies that the developers are going to be able to recoup, because it's the difference of the base value and the projected values going forward. And I would hope that the commissioners would revalue that and redo their numbers on a legitimate base taxable value. Also, I would hope, it's my understanding that Commissioner Frohr still has an investment in this property, in that if it goes bankrupt, that it would fall back into your...
That's incorrect information.
Okay. Hold on. And if that were
Please
correct,
stay with the
I would
facts.
hope that you would recuse yourself. Thank you.
Are there any others from the audience that would like to comment? Okay, Commissioners, I'm closing the public comment at this time. We're going to move to consent items. Item 1 is a request for approval of a ratification of warrants 103,948 through and including 104,072 and 488,402 through and including 488,557 in the amount of $3,279,249.05, dated December 24th. Item 2 is a request for approval of warrants 104,073 through and including 104,099 and 488,558 through and including 488,623 in the amount of $4,978,633.77. Item 3 is a request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $252,293.40. Item 4 is a request for approval of the 2025 purchase orders in the amount of $134,434.14. With the item number 5, the summary of warrants and purchase orders. Let's go to that point right there, and we have Mr. Ricky Hatch here to explain those.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We issued 24 purchase orders for $387,000. Just over a third of that amount, or $134,000, is for IT to purchase software maintenance and streaming services for the commission meetings. 25%, or $63,000, is for the animal shelter to purchase CCTV system to replace the old system. We had 2 items at 17%, or $44,000. One was for the jail to purchase taser cartridges, mattresses and gloves, and other supplies. The other is for the conference center to purchase floor cleaning equipment. 11%, or $27,000, belongs to dispatch to purchase computers, and then 10%, or $36,000, is for the transfer station for equipment repair and fuel. As far as warrants, we issued 93 warrants for $5 million, just over a quarter of that amount, $1.3 million. Not over a quarter, but $1.3 million is for road construction for 12th Street, as well as 2725 North in Pleasant View. $832,000 of that amount is storm drain outfall for Eden Acres. $695,000 are our American Rescue Plan Act funds distribution to Wolf Creek Water and Sewer. $664,000 is related to construction costs for the CJC building. $600,000 is funding to the Weber Housing Authority. And then $543,000 are ramp awards to the Ogden Pioneer Heritage Foundation and to Hooper City.
Commissioners, any comments or questions for Mr. Hatch?
None.
Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 6, which is a request for approval of the contract by and between, a contract renewal by and between Weber County and Matthew Schechter for administrative law judge for employment appeals. Item 7 is a request for Weber County Tax Review Committee for approval of the following recommendations. Parcel 8, 465 and 10, recommendation is to approve abatement of taxes in the amount of $2,289.38 due to secondary change in primary residence. The next one is the parcel 22, 258 and 4, recommendations to approve abatement of taxes in the amount of $4,649.95 due to the secondary charge of a primary residence. And parcel 9, 125 and 57, recommendation to deny abatement of taxes in the amount of $1,473.55, where no evidence provided for primary residence. Item 8 is a request for approval of a memorandum of understanding by and between Weber County and Taylor West Weber Water Improvement District. Those are the items for the consent items today, Commissioners. Item 1 through and including 8. If there's any questions, I welcome that now. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve consent items F1 through 8.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for those consent items, F1 through and including 8. I'll place that for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Those consent items for the rest of the year are now approved. Our actions, Commissioners, and for those who took time to give your comments earlier today, we appreciate that. Thank you. We did write down some questions, and we'll do our best to answer those questions. Many of those questions had to do with the development agreement and not with the CRA that we're talking about today. Two different things, but we'll try to explain that for you again today. So item number 1 is a request for approval of the final reading for Ordinance Village Community Reinvestment Project area. Ms. Lauren Thomas, why don't you come up? We also have our community, we've asked Economic Development Director, Stacy Russell, Stephanie Russell, to stay home because she's not feeling well. So out of respect for those and health, she'll home, but I'll call on her to make comments. And then we also have our community our community director, Mr. Sean Wilkinson. He's here, and Mr. Wilkinson, I may call on you just to help answer the questions that were, some of them were just to add clarity and accuracy for those comments that were stated today. Go ahead, Ms. Thomas.
Okay, so the first thing I want to draw your attention to was just one change that was made to this ordinance from 2 weeks ago. And that was the attachment for the plan and budget was just updated to be the most current version. The only difference is 2 clerical errors were corrected. Otherwise, it stayed the same. And I would like to just clarify kind of this difference between the plan and budget that this ordinance seeks to approve today versus the development agreement. Statute for the plan and budget does not require any concrete numbers as to the actual development. The development for the area is still entirely governed by the development agreement, and Sean can speak to the development agreement if need be. But the plan and budget, the purpose is to show...
So just sorry to interrupt you, Ms. Thomas.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about today has nothing to do with the development agreement.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was brought up several times, and there seems to be a perpetuation of information out there that these two are directly related, and they're not. Is that correct?
They're separate, and I can see the confusion. I completely understand the confusion, especially where the numbers don't align. They have the same name, right? It is this development. However, the plan and budget for the CRA is a projection. In this case, it's a 15-year projection in order to access the tax increment financing. So the numbers that are in there were put in there and made for the purpose of this projection over a 15-year period. But the development agreement, and it does say this in the plan and budget as well, the development agreement is the governing document for the actual development of the land.
So we're not talking about that today. We're talking about, correct. Very good. Thank you. Go ahead.
That's all I have for you today.
Perfect. Ms. Thomas, thank you. We may call on you again in just a moment.
Sure.
Ms. Russell, thank you for joining us online. Do you have some comments pertaining to this? I'm hoping that your comments may answer some of the questions given today by Ms. Fulmer, Ms. Keswick, Ms. Dooling-Baker, Ms. Quigley, and Ms. Francis.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very similar to what Ms. Thomas said. So this is a finance tool, and it's governed by state statute. So when we put together a project area plan and budget for any type of CRA area, we have to follow the state statute. And if you look through the project area plan and budget as it was published, you're going to see references to the state statute in every single section of that document. Section 4 specifically of the project area plan and budget, it comes out of the gate stating that the development agreement is the governing document for the project. These, once again, are projections that are put into place so that we can do an analysis, a long-term analysis of the project area. It enables us to figure out what type of agreement we're going to go out and look for as it relates to participation in tax increment finance. This has nothing to do with county development codes. It has nothing to do with the county development agreement or the processes that the developer will still have to continue to go through to make sure that they're in compliance with that agreement. These are just projections as it relates to potential development of that property. And as it states in the general plan and with this particular project, they do have opportunity to add additional density. So we built that into the finance mechanism. We built that into the model. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's there if it does happen. So those are things that are still under consideration, and those are things that have not yet come to pass through our county development process, but for the purposes of creating a community reinvestment area and to activate the tax increment finance so that we can move forward with the project. That's what the projections were put in as.
Thank you.
I hope that's helpful.
That's helpful. You know, Mr. Ulibarri, I'm going to take a little tangent here. I'm going to ask you to come up to the lectern in as much as you're the assessor. An assertion was made in the comments as it related to Greenbelt and property. You're familiar with, I know we've got tens and tens of thousands of different property ID numbers, but is it, can you speak to the regards, if you can, and I realize I'm hitting you cold on this, so this will be very off the hip. But in relation to Greenbelt, I'd like to know the truth about Greenbelt, and then what happens with Greenbelt, and then when a developer comes in and wants to develop a piece of property anywhere in the county, whether it's up in the valley or whether it's out west, it's all the same county. Can you speak to that for just a moment? And then, Mr. Wilkinson, I'll go to you.
Certainly. So I just want to make sure I understand your question, because it's always a good idea to ask me to come up and present something cold, because nothing ever bad happens when you ask that. So your question, Commissioner, is one, what is Greenbelt, and two, how does it function in the county?
Fine. Great.
Was that your question?
That's great.
Okay. So Greenbelt is, to give you a little historical perspective, was enacted by the Utah State Legislature back in 1969 to allow farmers to continue to farm. Because back then, specifically Salt Lake Valley was being developed at a rate, and it was pushing the land values up to a point where farmers couldn't afford to farm anymore. So the Utah State Legislature, very wisely, in my opinion, enacted the Farmland Assessment Act, otherwise known as Greenbelt. What that does is the property is still valued at its market value, but it's taxed at its production value. Okay, so valued at its market value, taxed at its production value, and when it is no longer in production, there's something they call a rollback tax. So whatever the difference is between the tax that was paid and the tax that would have been owed if it was taxed at its market value is paid for up to the prior 5 years. So far, so good?
Very good.
Okay, and then your next question was, how do we administer Greenbelt?
Great, yes.
Okay. So we have a specific Greenbelt specialist in our office, Angela Hill. She does an amazing job, and her job is to go through and perform audits of Greenbelt properties. We do random audits throughout the county because she can't go out, and we simply don't have the time or the staff or the money to go out and audit every Greenbelt property every year. So she'll perform some random audits. She will also send out letters to owners of property under two different circumstances. One is if there's a name change on the property, if there's an ownership transfer of any kind. Two, if there's a legal description change of any kind. The Utah state law obligates us to send those letters out. Hopefully the property owner responds to those. If they don't, Angela will roll them out of Greenbelt, and the rollback's tax is owed.
That's correct. Great. How many, would you have any idea how many Greenbelt pieces of property are in Weber County?
Off the top of my head, I would say somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000, but I can't give you an exact number.
Appreciate that. Normally Greenbelts, I know the law changed 2 or 3 years ago, but normally Greenbelts are 5 or more acres. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Ulibarri before I ask Mr. Wilkinson to come up? Mr. Wilkinson, thank you, Mr. Ulibarri.
You're very welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, if I could, please. There was some questions as it related to, does Weber County approve water?
Weber County does not approve water, so we rely on the water companies that actually provide that water to verify to us that the water is available, and that happens with each development application that is submitted. If water is not available and we do not receive that approval from the water company, then the development does not move forward.
Thank you very much. Mr. Crockett, is it lawful for us to make decisions based on whether or not the project has water or not?
We would have to go to what statutory authority is given to you, and if that's not one of the requirements, then no. But like I said, we do verify as part of the development process, so that will come at a point in time. But as of right now, it just does not seem like it would be applicable.
Part of the development process, but not part of the CRA.
Correct.
We're meeting today regarding the CRA, but water has to do with the development process, and we don't have any legislative authority over water. So the comments with regards to water, and there were 2 or 3 of them, This body does not make decisions based on water. So when people come up here and say, you need to deny this because of water, we legally can't do that. We will not, and for me, I'm just going to make this statement, I will not bind the county or put the county in a legal problem because we're making decisions that aren't lawful. We obey the law. Commissioner Farrar?
Just a question. So let's just clarify, Sean. I think you know who actually owns all the water in the state of Utah, who controls that. Can you, in your own words, describe who that authority is, knowing that, and I agree with Commissioner Harvey, we get accused a lot of controlling water. We have absolutely no ownership of water. That's the state of Utah. There's a department in the state of Utah that does control that. Can you tell us who that is, so if people in the future have issues or questions on water rights, where should they go?
They should go to the State Department of Water Rights. That's exactly where they should go.
I.e. the state engineer.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's an engineer, state engineer, that has basically sole control over water rights. Where's that disbursements, change of water distribution, et cetera, correct?
Correct.
Does the county have any ability to do that?
We do not.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, great. So that takes care of that. Let's also, there was a question about personal property taxes and where will the sales tax go. Maybe that's for Ms. Russell, but do you know those answers as well, Mr. Wilkinson?
No, that's not something that I would speak to.
I do want to weigh in on that.
Go ahead.
So when as it relates to community reinvestment areas, the county does not participate in sales tax increment at all. That is just personal property and property taxes that we distribute the increment from. So sales tax is not involved at all in any of our community reinvestment areas.
So, Ms. Keswick, sales tax questions could be answered through the State Department of Sales Tax. That's yeah, sure, but that's still there, and it gets confusing. But it's many different agencies. But the Utah Sales Tax Commission can answer those questions regarding that. And go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
Commissioners, I just wanted to touch on the density. The development agreement says that there are 565 units by right in Nordic Valley, and that is correct. And that is what Weber County will go by as far as development applications. Let me just say, the 800 number, I believe that came from the total of the hotel, the workforce housing, all of those added together in addition to the condominium units and the chalets that were listed in that project plan and budget does add up to 800 and whatever it was. But the base density is 565. That is by right in the development agreement. The hotel does not count against the residential density. So those 230 units don't count against the 565. And the workforce housing, the 50 units there, they don't count against the residential density. That's listed in the development agreement. So by right, we have 565 residential units. I believe with the total number that was in the project plan and budget, it was 22 over that 565, and that accounts for potential transfers of density into the resort area, which is allowed both by the form-based zone and by the development agreement. So there is no additional density being proposed here that is not anticipated by the development agreement. I just want to make that very clear.
And I'm sorry, we're getting off into the weeds and we're talking about a development agency in this CRA, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. Commissioners, I've got a few other things, but a lot of the questions were answered. But this has to do, most of the questions I'm hearing have to do with the development agreement and not with the CRA that we're hearing today. Commissioner Bolos, do you have any comments or questions at this time for this?
I don't. It's been clarified.
Thank you. Commissioner Farrar, do you have any comments or questions?
Well, just a comment. So I think it's very clear seems to be a confusion for one reason or the other between the development agreement and what we're doing with the project area. Two separate issues entirely. Water is not part of that equation. Density is not part of that equation. Project area is something we did very similar when we created the CRA for a little outfit called Snow Basin and the Holding family about a year and a half ago. What we did is, because we don't know what that development may look like 15, 20, or 30 years down the road, give them the ability to work within that project area and decide. Did that increase density? Absolutely not. Did it give them the ability to use the density that they're entitled to under state law to move within that area for future use? Because, again, 25 years, 30 years down the road, probably is going to look a little different than it does right now. So that's all it does. This is not setting a precedent. This is not new. This is exactly what we did with Snow Basin. And it makes sense that we can't predict the future, and it's a lot better to give them the ability to adjust to market conditions rather than have to have them come back every 3 to 5 to 10 years to adjust their plats to go through that same process. So I think, Sean, you were familiar with that with the Snow Basin project. I know Stephanie was for
Correct.
sure. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
is there anything else, Mr. Wilkinson, you can think to add?
Those were the notes that I took down. I just wanted to clarify the density.
Great. I just want you to know as chair here, and I feel obligated to say such a thing, but there was one comment made regarding ownership. Those comments are out of order. Anyone who does their research can go to the county clerk auditor, or they can go to the recorder and find out what ownership is without having to publicly disparage others. That's just, they're out of order. They're not appreciated. So I'm going to put this item number G1, I'm going to request for approval of this final ordinance 2024-24, County Commission of Weber County adopting the project area plan for the Nordic Village Reinvestment Project area. If there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve ordinance, the final reading of ordinance 2024-24.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second, and this is a roll call vote. I'll place this for vote with Mr. Brandt.
Roll call vote for ordinance 2024-24. Commissioner Faur?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolos?
Aye.
Chair Harvey?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 2 is a request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and GSBS Architects for the schematic design, development, and construction document preparation, bidding phase, and construction phase of the Weber County Correctional Facility. We have a great Chief Philip Reese to make that presentation. Mr. Reese, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. Despite being egged on to do otherwise, I'm going to stay very well behaved and appropriate in this
Great,
meeting.
thank you.
I appreciate that. I just would like to express gratitude first and foremost to our county overarchingly, as Commissioner Harvey pointed out. The teamwork within this county really is amazing, and I'm grateful to be a small part of that. Specifically for this contract, purchasing with Mr. Horn and Mr. Clements, worked through some minutia and gave appropriate guidance to be able to put this in front of you all this morning. And then our civil attorneys are, as always, knowledgeable and offer guidance that keeps us within the appropriate lines and ordinances. And then to give gratitude to the three of you for your ongoing support of this important step forward. This facility will provide services and protection for some of our most vulnerable individuals within our population. And as noted, as the notes indicate, this contract is another step forward to provide schematic design, development, and construction documents in preparation for mental health and medical expansion on the campus of the 12th Street facility. How may I answer any of your questions?
Thank you. This is in Commissioner Bolos's portfolio. Commissioner Bolos, do you have any comments or questions for Chief Reese?
I just appreciate your efforts, Chief, your compassion with which you address these issues, and specifically caring for these individuals and making sure that the county is caring for these individuals is much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Faur, any comments or questions?
Just a comment. So I understand you'll be working with Mr. Scott Mendoza that will help with in discussions with this architect as we move forward. Is that your understanding
That's
as well?
my understanding, and I'm very much looking forward to working with Mr. Mendoza.
Yeah, I think that'll be great. He has a great operating knowledge of this process, so look forward to the results.
Likewise.
Very good. With no more comments, I'll entertain a motion for item number 2.
Move to approve the contract by and between Weber County and GSBS Architects as described by Chief Reese.
We have a motion?
Second.
And a second. I'll place that for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Item G3 is a request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and Workspace Elements for furniture for the new Children's Justice Center. Our director there, Mr. Rod Layton. Just, will you just give a 30-second summary of what the Children's Justice Center is?
We facilitate the prosecution of crimes against children. So we work directly with law enforcement, DCFS, school districts, everybody. So when that report comes in of a case of child abuse, then it comes to us first.
Is there any area that's immune to this that we don't see very many from?
Yeah, none.
Sorry. That's such a sad thing.
It's increasing. Technology has increased that, the need for it substantially. That really changed. I have to tell you when that happened.
Wow, thank you. What are you here for today, Rod?
Commissioners, I'm looking for approval on a contract with Workspace Elements for the furniture for the new CJC for $215,819.86. I want to just clarify one thing here. There's been a couple of questions about the cost of the furniture. Remember that we started the CJCs in 1991, and the county or any government agencies never provided any furniture. So with this transition from a building that's been owned for the last 35 years by a nonprofit organization, we're now switching to a county facility, and so nothing in the old building is coming with us. We don't own it. So this is pretty reasonable when you think we've never spent a cent on furniture over all these years, and now we've got to. So that's why it's that.
When you keep getting surplus items that are broken down or marginal when you get them, it's about time. So that'll be great. Anything else with your presentation, Mr. Layton?
Nope. I just need that approval. We'll move forward.
Again, I think we've all had the opportunity to sit on your board, but currently Commissioner Bolos, you're sitting on that board. Any comments or questions relating to this?
Sure, can I thank Mr. Layton as well? I don't know if I've ever seen anyone do so much with so little. And the work that you put forth on this project is just phenomenal, so thank you.
You're welcome. It's important.
Yep.
If there are any other questions, comments, then I'll entertain a motion. One or the other?
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to move approval of the contract between Weber County and Workspace Elements for furniture for the new Children's Justice Center building, with a comment, if I might.
Please.
So I had the opportunity just last week, I believe it was, to preview the new building. And I tell you what, it's such a major step up to where we were in the existing building. Very impressed with the layout. There was a lot of thought that went into, okay, unfortunately we have these kids that we have to deal with. I wish that would go away, but it's not going to. But this gives a process that best reflects on how do we take care of those children that come into that facility, how do we take care of the parents, and with the least harm in the future to those children. And I think Rod and his group, and we can also thank the state for their support. I'd be remiss if we didn't thank the state for the support of this facility. But I'm just excited. It's going to be a major step up for Weber County, and I believe that Weber County made about a $4 million investment of ARPA funding, along with every city in the county?
Every city.
Every city.
Yep.
So I want to thank the mayors that stepped up to say, let's make this right for the kids. And I believe this is something for the next 15, 20, 30 years that's going to really paint a different picture for the children. So
I hope when people take up interest in things that are happening, and this is one of the things that they'll really bear, because this is something we could all use help in, and everyone's participated. With that, I'll entertain a motion for approval on this.
Commissioner Farrar made the motion. I'll second, yes.
Second. Motion and a second. I'll place that motion for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Layton. Mr. Ulibarri will call you back up. This is a request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and TREP, Inc. for validated income and expense information for commercial real estate properties to be provided to the Weber County Assessor's Office. Mr. Ulibarri, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. The proposed contract between Weber County and TREP is for a service that provides validated income and expense information for commercial real estate properties across the state of Utah. This additional data will allow us to value property more accurately and equitably than we can right now. The contract runs for 3 years at a total cost of $69,355.55. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Ulibarri?
None for me.
With none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd move approval of the contract between Weber County and TREP, Inc. for validated income and expense information for commercial real estate properties to be provided to the Weber County Assessor's Office as presented by Mr. John Ulibarri this morning.
We have a motion?
Second.
And a second. I'll place that for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks. We're now on to item number 8.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Ulibarri. Dee Dee, that'll be you next time, we hope. We'll see.
Just a question, if I might.
Please go.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner comments, and now's a good time for that.
Well, I'm just wondering if I've missed the last 2 years or
have.
if Groundhog Day. I'm looking at our agenda here and 2022. I wish it was 2020.
Shelley's sweet little stamp. She needs to roll that number over 2 or 3 others.
I just wanted to make sure I was in the right year.
Yeah, you're doing fine. Yeah, Doc, all you need to do is add that curly hair and you'll be great. Some people get that.
I get it.
Okay. Any other comments?
None.
Have a happy new year. I hope it's safe, and I hope that there's a lot of kindness, and 2025 ought to be wonderful. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for item I.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.